We're just talking about the Giants bringing up young guys and winning at the same time. And you said, oh, 2 timelines.
Oh, yeah. Everything's 2 timelines now.
Oh, hey now. That's interesting. So all of a sudden we're saying 2 timelines can work. Well, maybe in baseball it can. Maybe in baseball it can.
It can in the NBA, too.
Yeah.
If you draft the right group of youngsters. If James Wiseman was a guy who it felt like was on the track toward being 20-10, if Jonathan Kuminga had the wherewithal, the maturity, and the development to where he was going to be 18-8, and Jordan Poole maybe was not at odds with the veterans, allegedly, yeah, 2 timelines could have worked here.
Well, I think baseball is less dependent on one player than basketball and football.
That's true.
And I mean that about each individual player. Like in basketball, you are really highlighted if you are playing well or if you're not, right? And if you have Steph Curry, you have a shot. And if you are Jonathan Kuminga and you don't go get a rebound and the highlight plays on Twitter, yeah, you're going to get the bench. If you're Casey Schmidt and you strike out and you ground into a double play, hey, you had a bad day, get him tomorrow. You got 8 other people to come up with bats to try to win the baseball game. And it happened today. Casey did not have a good game, but the Giants won. You know what I mean? And so maybe 2 timelines can work in baseball in a way that it can't in the others. And to bring the 49ers into this, the quarterback position, there's nothing like that. You've made the point a few times about how the quarterback is like not one of the best or most important 6 or 7 players on the 49ers. I get what you're saying, but in another respect, the quarterback is always the most important player on a football team. You can't hide the quarterback. You can't have poor play at quarterback and still win.
You can have mediocre play and still win.
A Super Bowl?
Well, it's happened very rarely.
Very rarely.
Trent Dilfer.
It can happen.
Everybody will always say Trent Dilfer, and yeah, it can happen. And don't say Brad Johnson, friend of the program, because Brad actually played pretty well in those games.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, they didn't need him because they had the Raiders playbook, so they didn't really need Brad Johnson. All they needed was that nasty defense. But you're less likely to win a Super Bowl with mediocre quarterback play. But football is the one sport where the 2 timelines idea doesn't really work because your roster turns over so fast due to injury and guys aging out anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's totally different. But yeah, that's something that at least in the near term, the last month or so, it looks like Farhan and the Giants have a shot to try to pull off, which is to develop and win at the exact same time. The Warriors have been criticized roundly for this. The 49ers less so, but they've ended up in this very, very unique quarterback dynamic, and I have no idea how that whole thing is going to play out, although we do have something from George Kittle that we can play for you a little bit later that is interesting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's very, very interesting with regard to the 49ers stuff. But yeah, maybe I'm open to that. Maybe this is only available in the sport of baseball. Austin and San Jose on our YouTube feed. And again, get to our YouTube and Twitch feeds. That's where you're going to have a chance to win our big prize today to end up at the Warriors introductory press conference after the draft. But Austin, who likes to dig at me a lot, and that's totally fine, says, hey, Willard, what do you want to give to Farhan at this point? Stop telling fans, all caps, how to feel. Am I telling everybody how to feel? I'm giving you how I feel.
Right.
You get to feel however you want. But I absolutely think that so far this year, I don't know that this is arguable. It's been a great year for Farhan. Doesn't mean they've won anything. It doesn't mean you give them a lifetime extension. But the two things, when you go back to Correa falling through and you look at where we are now, where he was being ripped for, oh, you won't spend and your draft picks stink. Well, they went out and took the money and went to some other places for it. Some of them have worked, some of them have not. And now his draft picks are literally supplanting the draft picks that came before him and succeeding, and the team's going on a run to get into playoff position. It's been a good year for him.
For sure. For sure. I mean, if you would give grades based on his drafted players. Are they making an impact? And then make a separate grade based on his free agent acquisitions. His drafted player grade is an A or an A minus in terms of his guys that he drafted who've come up and made an impact this year. Because this was a year when they were supposed to make an impact. 2023 was the year where we said, all right, Farhan, it's your time. It's your time for your guys to come up and make an impact. And they have. And Kyle Harrison is going to be next up. And I would imagine that he's going to make an impact based on what he's done in AAA. And he's probably a week to 6 weeks away from being here. I don't think it'll be much after mid to late July, in my opinion.
We'll see. I mean, it depends on how he throws, but
And right now the Giants are in need of another starter to me. They've got 3 real bankable starters, and then they've got question marks and openers, and they've got swing men and long men. I'm sure they would love to have another guy who they could say, 5 innings, Kyle, go out there and get it done. Free agency-wise, I think you could give him a B minus or even a C plus.
Yeah.
I don't think that and it's unfortunate now that that Haniger's hurt and out for 2 months, because that's not Farhan's fault, but unfortunately, that was one of your free agent guys, and he's now gone until August.
And he wasn't playing great before the injury happened either. Conforto has been really, really good. And, let's not forget the likes of Alex Cobb, not this year, but that was a free agent signing for Farhan. I mean, like that.
DeSclafani, free agent signing.
Alex Wood, sure.
Manaya.
There's been ups and downs.
Stripling.
Well, here'd be a good question, and we could throw this out, 888-957-9570. Go back to the day that Correa went the other way, when that all fell through, and how do you feel about Farhan and the Giants now versus how you felt about him then? And it's obviously way more positive right now, but even look at the lists that are seem to be populating in your mind right now. The good and the bad.
Yep.
Like the bad list, even though DeSclafani's been back and forth this year, I think all told, that's been probably a net slight negative. What would you say? He was good 2 years ago when he wasn't pitching against the Dodgers.
There's a big caveat.
In a really good year.
Seemed like he was always pitching against the Dodgers.
And then
giving up a 9 spot.
Right. And then last year he was bad and hurt. This year he's been more good than bad, although it's taking a little bit of what appears to be an unfortunate turn. At his price tag, I'd say it's a slight disappointment.
I'd say it's just a disappointment.
Okay.
Not a major disappointment, but more than a slight disappointment. It's a net negative to me.
La Stella, mistake. Stripling
Forgot
so
about
far.
La Stella.
Yeah, La Stella was bad. Stripling, not so far, no good. Manaya, right now, there are concerns there for sure. Haniger, I don't know. That's a shoulder shrug. It's a little bit too early. But when you flip to the other side and you go, okay, you found Wade for a bucket of balls. You found Yaz for an old catcher's mitt. Conforto, I think, has been really good. Let's remember the things he didn't do. He didn't do Carlos Rodon, right?
And you didn't mention Estrada yet either.
Tyro Estrada, thank you. Plucked him, and he's been maybe the best player on the team. The J.D. Davis trade. Y'all wanted him to re-sign Madison Bumgarner. He didn't.
Jock Peterson's been good.
Jock Peterson's been really good. That's ended up being smart and has continued to stay flexible. I think and now you start
Blake Sable, Rule 5. Let's get down to it.
And Patrick Bailey was his first pick. So and look at him now. The good list is bigger than the bad, if you ask me. Don't you think?
I do. And that's why I would divide up the 2 columns, because actually it's 3 columns, because there's the drafted players, there's his dumpster diving, his lost and found players, and then there's the free agents where I'm going to spend big money on these players. That's where he has failed the most. And yet, there's still 4 games above 500. Drafted players are coming up and contributing. Nobody does the dumpster dive better than Farhan Zaidi. You mentioned bucket of balls and an old catcher's mitt and a Rule 5 guy, and Tyro Estrada, I don't even know what they traded. He was in the Darren Ruff trade, right?
No, Tyro Estrada came from the Yankees.
There's been so many trades.
J.D. Davis was in the Darren Ruff trade.
But of all these players, if you look at all the moves and all the trades, You'd be hard-pressed to find a trade where you look at it and go, oh, man, Farhan got fleeced in that one.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. He finds these guys. He makes these microscopic moves that make us scratch our head, and then weeks or months later, it's like, oh, that's right. Farhan picked this guy up back in whenever for whomever, and here we go.
Do you know who the Giants traded for Thairo Estrada?
I don't know, Mark. I just got it wrong.
April 11th, 2021.
To the Mets, right?
No, the Yankees. He was in the Yankee system. And he had been DFA'd.
Thairo.
He had been DFA'd at age 25.
Who would the Giants have traded
the Yankees?
The Yankees
DFA'd him when the Yanks added Rougned Odor to the 40-man roster. So he'd been DFA'd. And as you know, when you're designated for an assignment, you got, I think, a 10-day window where the team can trade you. They'll try to trade you. And if not, if you clear through that whole process, waivers, whatnot, then you can either go to the minors or elect free agency or whatever. So the Giants struck a trade. You know who they gave up for Thairo Estrada?
I still don't know.
He is an often traded player. He goes by the name Cash Considerations.
Good little player.
Consideration sensation.
Cash rules everything around me.
Cream.
Get the money.
Dollar bills, y'all.
To the Yankees.
The Giants essentially grabbed someone who is competing to be an all-star.
For cash.
For cash.
Do we know how much cash?
We don't. Just considerations.
And I always wonder about cash considerations.
It's my favorite phrase because it's like, did you pay anything at all? We considered giving him cash.
Right.
Then we decided not to.
And is it a Venmo PayPal thing? Or is it, hey, let's meet halfway across the country and we'll give you a briefcase? How does that work in terms of cash considerations? At the next owners meeting, I'm going to buy you lunch, Steinbrenner. How about that?
I'm going to consider it.
Right.
I'll consider it. I decided against it.
Exactly. That's always great.
Yeah.
Cash considerations.
That's how they got that guy.
It was a consideration.
And thank you. And Lamont Wade, you remember, was for Sean Anderson, a pitcher who has just I don't even know, floating around
and
in
Mike
the ethos
Yastrzemski was a similar
same
nothing burger.
With the Orioles, correct.
And I don't know what Farhan does or how he goes about his analytical genius. What do you see in these players to where nobody else sees the value in Thairo, in Lamont, in Yaz, yet Farhan, in his inimitable wisdom, he sees something. And credit to Gabe Kapler and his enormous coaching staff for being able to take Farhan's vision and implement it in terms of getting these players to play the way they want them to play.
Yeah, I don't know if he's not a scout. I just think he's got a process, and I think that it shows when a player is undervalued. Now, that doesn't mean the player is going to be a star. We've watched them bring in all of the Mariners minor leaguers, and often they amount to nothing. So nothing is foolproof, but can you imagine now? I mean, what has unfolded? Let me give you another name. How about another name? And he got roundly made fun of for this. But in left field, to start in 2019, his first year as an opening day president of baseball ops, who does he send out to left field? Connor Joe. And everybody went, who is this wackadoodle? And what is that batting stance? Connor went 1 for 15. And the noise got so loud that the Giants sent him out. And he was never to be seen in a Giants uniform again. But you know what? To Colorado and Pittsburgh, the guy has become a starting level outfielder with an OPS. Gosh, in Colorado 2 years ago, his OPS was 848. He's become a strong player.
It's about 800 right now.
Yeah, so Farhan, he saw that. It didn't develop fast enough. I just think he's got a process that's able to find some of these guys.
Right, in the scouting department, for sure.
Kevin Gausman, same thing.
And Gausman's been great subsequently, and you got Carlos Rodon in for a year, and you got off of Carlos Rodon at just the right time. So he's done many things right, but as a casual Giants fan, you look at the big names, the big moves, and so far that hasn't happened. But right now, Farhan can sit back in his easy chair and put the feet up a little bit and at least relish in the fact that he hasn't brought in the big name free agent, yet they're 4 games above, and his dumpster diving, roster backfilling, his netted many regular players, and now his drafted future is here. So if we want to talk two timelines, Mark, we need to start with Farhan Zaidi and the Giants.
Well, it's funny and I agree that it's a little different for baseball. It's a little different for baseball, but yeah, he has probably for the people that are his first round picks. If we look at these three teams, just this moment, here we are, June 14th. Who's drafted and developed their first round draft pick the best?
It's the Niners.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm focusing on Trey Lance, and yes, they have Nick Bosa.
Sure.
They've got Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
Right? There have been some first rounders that have really, really worked out. The Warriors right now feel like they're the ones who are everybody's question mark.